Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech, fake news, the puppet masters, they are now panicking, and their panic is off the charts. Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he's letting the deep state, the central bankers know that we're entering the end game. And we've known this for a very long time, that Trump's war is with the central bank system. The central bank is behind the curtain. The central bank is what controls everything that's going on. The central bank creates the system that we're in today, and then creates the corruption, creates the deep state players, because that's what the system does. And then that system protects the central bank. I mean, if you look at Canada, for example, what's going on right there? Carney is a proxy, and yes, he's part of the central bank establishment, but he's a proxy for the central bank system. Yes, and China is involved in that. Same thing with Iran. Iran is a proxy to the central bank system and China, because again, China was supposed to be the financial manufacturing powerhouse of the next economic system. And what we see happening right now, we see the central bank, they're using their proxies to try to stop Trump. Trump is winning every step of the way. So when you look at Iran, it's really not the mullahs IRGC. They are the proxies. Yes, they are a problem, but that's not who he's at war with. He's at war with those people behind the curtain. That's who he's fighting. And this is why he came out with this post just the other day, letting everyone know that, hey, we're shutting down your shadow networks. We know what you've been doing, and you know who you are. So this is why Trump doesn't need boots on the ground. This is why he doesn't need to take over the country, because, again, it's not the country. They're just a proxy. And now Trump is warning, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is warning the central bankers that we're entering the end game. And it's going to start at dawn, which means at dawn, we win. Because you have to remember, the deep state had control of what? The most powerful military on the planet. The central bank had control of the most powerful economic system on the planet. The deep state / central bankers use the United States to make other countries fall in line and to push their agenda. When the most powerful army, the most powerful economic system is taken away from them, they're very, very weak. And this is the problem that they're having. They don't have that power. They can't project that power. Now they're on the other side. Now they have to use their proxies. The terrorists are gone. That's difficult for them. The proxy countries, they're being obliterated because they don't have the control over the U.S. forces. Think about it. When the deep state, the central bankers had control, let's go back to Obama, when they had control and they were going after another country, Syria, to overthrow the government there, what did Obama do? Well, as a deep state player, he directed the military to hit targets in Syria. The targets were to allow ISIS to expand so this way they could take over the country. When the deep state and the central bankers had control over the United States, what did they do? They went into Iraq. They went into Libya. They went into Lebanon and said, listen, we know what you're doing. You're not going to sell oil using your own currency or gold. You're going to stay on the petrodollar system. They had the ability, they had the force to force all the players back in line. Trump now has taken this away from them. He's taken the power away from them. He has the power. He has the leverage. You see, their globalist system, it worked very, very well when they were in charge. Now that Trump is in charge and he's controlling the executive branch, controlling the military, and the people are on his side, that control that Trump has now can actually go up against the globalist system. And the globalists, the central bankers, the deep state players, they can't do anything about it because, again, what they have done was they passed the money to all the other countries. They made the United States the consumer. The consumer has the control. They lost that one important part of the system, and that is the executive branch, the military, and the people. You see, they used to control that. This way, everything was always the way they wanted it. This way, they could control the narrative, the agenda, because they controlled the fake news, too. Now that Trump has taken this away, they're finding it very, very difficult to fight him. Yes, can they delay? Yes, but in the end, he doesn't need to invade the country. The country is not the problem. They're just the proxy. It's those people behind the scenes. So when you hear the deep state say, oh, he's going to have to bring troops in, oh, he's going to have to put boots on the ground, oh, it's going to be a long, drawn-out war. No, it's not, because that's not who he's really fighting. And it's going to become very, very clear that he never has to do this with any country. And this is how he's taking the control back, because you have to remember, the control was taken away in 1913. Remember, this is the third private Western central bank in this country. The first one, the charter ran out, and Congress said, hey, we're not doing that again. That was a nightmare. The second one, Andrew Jackson, ran on the platform of getting rid of the second central bank system. Trump now is removing the third. And if we're going to truly take back control, you need to get rid of the source of the problem. And like I said before, the deep state players just didn't appear out of nowhere. You needed money. You needed money to bring in the corrupt people. You needed money to pay. You needed money to set up your system. You needed money to do all these things. This is why the central bank was established going way, way back in time. Now, remember, when you establish a system, you just can't tell everyone, listen, by the way, I know you weren't paying taxes before, but now, since we set up this new system, on day one, everyone's going to have to pay taxes, and we're going to come off the gold standard. No, it takes a long time to convince the people that this is the right thing. And this is what they've done over a long period of time. And yet you could see they did it in stages, because, again, they established themselves again in 1913. World War II, they had to wait so the United States could become the reserve currency of the world. Then they could start breaking down the United States, going after the Constitution, bringing the people online, starting the brainwashing. And yes, this takes a very long time to do, because the people just won't accept it right off the bat. And over time, this is what they've done. And in 1971, we came off the gold standard, which allowed them to then create as much currency as they wanted. They brought the people in that they needed. They had those people in there now borrowing money for ridiculous programs, and they were using that money to basically create their system. Trump is removing and dismantling that system. And yes, he has to go to Venezuela. He has to remove what was going on there. Because again, if you're going to compete with the central bank and China on the world stage, you need to remove what they have done. This is why he's in Iran. Because again, yes, small part of it to stop terrorists. I mean, that was going to stop anyhow, because the money that was flowing into Iran was going to be non-existent. But the real thing was to decentralize the oil there, to set up the system where we can have very, very cheap energy to compete with what the central bank was trying to do. And they controlled the oil in the Middle East going all the way back to 1971, because we came off the gold standard when it went on to the petrodollar system. So they established a new system out there, and they used fear to control the oil prices. Now Trump is going to be removing all of this. And this is what it means by taking back control, because once you have control over the creation of currency, over the payment system, over everything, and it's decentralized, the deep state players, the central bankers, it's going to make it very, very difficult for them to come back into power. This is why the central bank, and I do believe from the very, very beginning, this was going to be the war of all wars. I don't mean this is going to be a nuclear war or a World War III. This is what the central bankers would like. But the war is against the deep state and the central bank system that they have established. Because once you shut the money down, once you gain control over it, their whole system starts to unravel. And that's what you're going to see as time goes on. This is what it means by taking back control, removing everything that they put into place. And it goes back to the money. I know it's hard for people to say, no, it can't be. That's the way it's always been. No, it's not always been this way. This is what they established to make you believe that this has always been this way. Trump now is removing all of this. And he just can't come out and say, listen, we're out there because of oil, because people go, no, why would we be doing this? It doesn't make any sense. And then he would have to explain the whole entire thing, and most of the people wouldn't believe it. But if you tell them there's a nuclear weapon out there, which they were totally developing, because if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd be able to keep control over the system for a very, very long time. No one would actually ever go up against Iran with a nuclear weapon because we would start nuclear war. So Trump used the nuclear weapon to drive what he needed to do out in Iran. And this is not World War III. This is not about keeping the ongoing wars. Trump is a peace president. He's taking the wars and everything that they created to actually create the wars, and he's removing it, and he's shutting it down. And yes, there's going to be peace around the world. Why do you think we've had all these wars? Because the deep state players, the central bankers, they love wars. They love chaos. They love all of that because the central bankers make out no matter what. You have a war, you have to borrow the money from the debt man, from the loan sharkers. Oh, wait, after the war, you got to borrow from the loan shark to rebuild. They love war. That's why they're always pushing chaos across the globe. Trump is ending that chaos. That is what you're witnessing right now. And you can see the central bankers, yes, they're going to be using their proxies. Canada is a proxy. Iran is a proxy. Venezuela was a proxy. Cuba is a proxy. Ukraine is a proxy. And Trump is not fighting the actual Ukrainians. He's not really fighting the actual Cubans. He's fighting the deep state central bankers that control these proxies. This is why we never have to really invade. And yes, you have an individual within, like, let's say Venezuela, like Maduro. You remove Maduro, you remove the proxy, and all of a sudden, the deep state central bankers, they lose control over the country because you need the installed people to do their bidding. Just like you have Macron, just like you have Starmer, who used to be in control of the UK. Now it has changed. Just like Merz is in charge, just like the EU is in charge. They're all part of the same system. And eventually they will all be removed, which means the deep state central bankers, they will lose their proxies in every single one of these countries. You have to remember, the central bankers have no allegiance to a people or a country. They don't care if a country is destroyed. They don't care if Iran is obliterated. They don't care as long as they maintain control. That's all they care about. We'll be talking a little bit more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about what they were doing in this country. Yes, they were trying to break down the entire system here, and they were trying to infiltrate this country from within because they knew that they couldn't do it from the outside. So they had to do it from the inside. This is why they set up laws to protect those who were breaking the law, to make you believe that this is legal to do. Just like if you look at a sanctuary city was created to protect those people that broke the law. So whatever they set up is in violation of the Constitution. But again, if you have control over the judges, prosecutors, and you can control what is a law and what isn't a law, well, then you can keep these laws in place. They create laws that protect their cheating system. They create laws that protect the fraud investigations like they did out in California. These laws are unconstitutional. The criminal syndicate is passing laws to protect the crime. Think about it. Trump put this out on Truth. He said, it's not a sanctuary city. It's called harboring fugitives. And that's exactly right. This is what they've created. And as we go through all of this, you're going to see the criminal syndicate creates laws to protect their crimes every step of the way. And think about it. The data centers that Trump wants to build, he's going against the deep state, the central bankers, just like he went against them with oil, drilling in this country. Because again, they didn't want the United States to become an energy powerhouse. They wanted us dependent on other countries because it's a lot easier to control oil production someplace else. It's a lot easier to control and train AI someplace else to be used against the United States. And I think at this point, everyone can see the infiltration in this country. All you got to do is look at the public school system. All you got to do is look at the universities. And also, you got to look at the American Bar Association. Gunther Eagleman put this out and said, "This is huge. The Trump Education Department just recommended stripping the American Bar Association of its power to accredit law schools. A 500-page report concludes that the ABA's accreditation arm is not independent. It operates like a cartel that injects its own political ideology into the process. For decades, the ABA has held a near monopoly over who gets to become a lawyer in America. That monopoly is now under direct attack. No more forced ideology, no more organization controlling the pipeline. This is how you break the stranglehold." And yes, this is what they've been doing because, again, they've known that it's completely and utterly impossible to have a war with the United States. They would never win against the United States. So the only way to do it was to infiltrate the country from within and break it down from within and make it weak from within. And this is what they've been doing for a very, very long time. But it's all starting to fail because you could see what Trump and team are doing. They're going back to the Constitution. They're fighting against those people that are violating the Constitution. And if you notice, since Trump set up the Second Amendment division within the DOJ, he's going to be going after all those states that created laws that are in violation of the Constitution. Now, the only reason they were able to do that was because they had their deep state system put into place. And the only reason they could do that is because of money. Now, this is all going to be starting to be reversed. It's all going to be shut down. And the laws that they pass are going to start to disappear. And what's very interesting is that the CDC now is going to restore self-defense statistics to its website after years of Biden-era censorship. Gun Owners of America put this out and said, there are up to 2.5 million defensive gun uses per year. This helps explain why Americans value our Second Amendment rights. Thank you, President Trump and Secretary Kennedy. And you have to remember, they didn't want people to understand and realize that guns save a lot more lives than guns take. But they wanted to keep the mass shootings alive to make you believe that guns are bad. They wanted to keep the criminals with guns to make you think guns are bad. They weren't going after the criminals. They were going after the law-abiding citizen because the law-abiding citizen, that was their target. Their target was to remove the weapon from the law-abiding citizen. They didn't care about the criminal. That made no difference because their goal was to break down the Constitution, break down and make you think you don't have that rights and maybe you'd be better off if you didn't have a weapon. And this is how you take over a country. And once again, the other way you take over a country is you push your agenda on technology companies where you can force them into doing things that you want them to do. Plus, you also take the money from these companies to support your way of life. And this is what Europe has been doing. Yes, not we, but the deep state players have been funneling the money through NGOs and tariffs and things like that into the European countries. The people of this country had to work as slave labor to support their socialist programs. They also taxed American companies to support their socialist agendas. Steve Forbes put this out and said, the European Union is punishing American technology companies. President Trump is right to call for Section 301 investigation. His message has been clear. American companies are neither Europe's piggy bank nor its punching bag. And that's absolutely true. Remember when Trump put this out a little while ago? The European Union is at it again, as usual, taking direct aim at great American companies. After having fined Apple for no reason at all, $15 billion, Meta, $3 billion, Amazon, $2.5 billion, and many others, we have just been informed that Google, a truly advanced and amazing group, has been fined yet another $1 billion without explanation. This brings the Google total to over $18 billion. This illegal and highly discriminatory practice started at these high levels during the first year of Sleepy Joe Biden administration, but it's not going to continue during the Trump administration. The United States of America is not a piggy bank for Europe, nor will we allow it to be. Please let this truth serve to represent that we immediately initiate a 301 investigation into the practice of robbing American companies and, in turn, the American taxpayer. The European Union will pay a very big price for this illegal and highly unethical conduct, which I have consistently warned them about. The penalties will be entirely reversed, and we anticipate a substantial tariff to be placed on them at the earliest possible moment. Stay tuned, President DJT. And remember, in the past, this would work because they had control over the executive branch. They had control over government, the army. Now that Trump is in control, he can use the tariffs and the power of the United States government against the deep state, the central bankers in other countries. Trump can then say, listen, you want to tax our companies? Well, we're going to get it back. And you know how we're going to do it? We're going to put 100% tariffs on you. And this is going to destroy everything that you're trying to do. You see, the deep state, the central bankers, they don't have that edge anymore. They don't have that leverage anymore. And this is what they're basically fighting against. And this is why they keep losing, because in the past, to run their system, they needed control of the United States, which they do not have anymore. So what do they try to do? They're going to try to create events, because in the end, they know what's going to happen. They know Trump is coming at their source of all their money. And they do not want to lose control, because once the central bank is no longer creating the currency in every single country, especially the United States, they lose control completely. The deep state players are done. They can't pay anyone. They can't pay groups to install certain people. They can't pay the networks to carry their message. They can't create organizations to push lawsuits. They can't do any of these things. It gets all shut down. So what do? They're going to try to push World War III. They tried the pandemic. That failed. So I do believe in the end, the only thing they have left is a cyber attack to try to bring us to war. Now, again, this is not going to work because they don't have control over the executive branch. They don't have control over Xi Jinping. They don't have control over Putin. I do believe they're working with Trump. So if you don't have the other side, it's going to make it very, very difficult to start war. But they will try. Look what Ukraine came out with. Number one, Zelensky says, no elections. I'm a dictator, and we're going to keep it the way it is. So he pretty much lied going way, way back, which we all knew. He was never going to have elections and have someone else take over the country and end the war. Because again, he's the proxy for the central bank deep state players. Ukraine right now is putting out the message that Russia has developed metal cutting drones to attack their power grid. Seems like they're really pushing a false flag, doesn't it? It's starting to seem that way. And when you look at the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, I think he pretty much says the quiet part out loud. Disclosed TV put this out and said, Ukraine has been Europe's protector. What does he mean by that? Ukraine has been Europe's protector. Well, you could look at it as, hey, Ukraine is protecting Europe because they're fighting Russia and protecting Europe from Russia. Or Ukraine is protecting everything the deep state, the central bankers have been doing. They are the proxy, and they've been protecting their secrets. So is the UK supporting Ukraine to fight Russia? Are they giving them drones? Absolutely. Russia's spokesman, and Disclosed TV put this out, says Britain is participating in the war on the side of the Kiev regime after UK announced they will be providing Ukraine with classified blueprints on British-made components in Storm Shadow's Scalp cruise missiles. Yes, they're going to try to take this to the next level. But in the end, it's not going to work. Because again, Trump knows exactly what they're doing. And I do believe he's in line with Putin and Xi. And they're not going to fall into starting World War III. And I do believe, yes, there are back channels. Yes, I do believe Europe, the deep state players, central bankers, they will try to push any type of false flag to try to get us into war. But again, just like the movie Sum of All Fears, I do believe Trump has a back channel into Putin and into Xi, and this is not going to happen whatsoever. It might look scary. It might look like, oh, look what just happened here. But in the end, it's going to be shut down. I mean, think about it. Everyone thought we were going to World War III with Iran. I mean, Iran tried, as a proxy of the central bank deep state players, tried to get the scale of the war to be widened by hitting other Middle Eastern countries and even trying to take shots at Europe. But that completely and utterly failed. And now, since they're on their last leg and they have no leverage whatsoever, they've put out a $10 million bounty on Baron Trump, and they put out a video about all of this. Now, again, think about it. $10 million? Well, let's just think about this for a second. 10 million American would be, what, 13 trillion Iranian rials. That's almost 14 trillion. That's actually 13.7 Iranian rials. That's almost 14 trillion rials. It's likely that the Iranians simply can't cover that bet. But what they're doing is they're saying, listen, we'll pay you this, but we don't have the money right now. They're hoping that someone will take this and do it for them. Remember, they have lost their terrorist organizations. They've lost Hezbollah. They've lost Hamas. They've lost everything that they had before. So now they're begging somebody out there to do something, but it's not going to work. And you could see every step of the way, Iran is in trouble. They don't have the money coming in. Trump is shutting down the shadow networks, which we'll be discussing in just a sec. But think about it. The Iran Chamber of Commerce and Iran Watch put this out. They admit the staggering scale of Iran's economic devastation, with millions of livelihoods crushed and the real numbers likely far worse. 770,000 fewer people employed by winter compared with spring. 1.35 million people left the labor force entirely, no longer working or even looking for work. 611,000 fewer workers covered by Social Security. Underemployment jumped from 6.6 to 8.2%. Business employed 6 to 10 workers collapsed by 22.3%, while 11 to 50 worker firms fell 14.2%. And these figures almost certainly do not capture the full scale of devastation. And this is before economic D-Day. Trump, he put this out in Truth. He said, Iran parliament speaker, we are hungry. We cannot survive. Trump says Iran is completely collapsing. President DJT. Clandestine says, POTUS says Iran is completely collapsing. It was only a matter of time. They cannot sell their oil to China. Their economy is crushed. They cannot pay their soldiers, and they do not have the means to defend themselves or fight back. Trump and the U.S. military don't have to do anything. They just have to maintain their overwhelmingly dominant position, and Iran will implode from within. Modern-day siege warfare. I hesitate to even call this a war because Iran had a 0% win probability from the get-go. There was maybe a 48-hour period where you could even call this a war in the traditional sense. It was vastly superior and technologically advanced military force that precisely eliminated key military targets while maintaining the civilian population infrastructure, all without putting boots on the ground. The real obstacle we have to manage is the corrupt mainstream media who want to make the people believe this was a failure when in reality it will go down as the most successful military operation in the history. And Clandestine says, keep in mind, Chinese President Xi Jinping is scheduled to visit Trump in D.C. next month between September 23rd and the 25th. This comes after Trump revealed intelligence of CCP interference in 2020. This meeting comes 6 weeks out from the 2026 midterms. There's some dots here. And yes, Trump shut down China. He's going after the CCP. They're not getting their cheap energy. The investigations going in showing that the CCP was interfering in the 2020 election. And yes, Trump has the leverage that he needs. And we could see at this point, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he's letting everyone know that they're moving forward with their plan. It is the Endgame, and they're calling it Operation Economic Outcast. This is what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says. President Trump has dismantled Iran's military capabilities, destroyed nearly 100% of its military factories, and buried its nuclear program. We're now entering the Endgame. At dawn begins an economic D-Day, the single greatest financial offensive ever marshaled against an adversary. The Islamic Republic has subsisted by dressing extortion as security guarantees. It has drawn strength from a calculus that regards Iranian retaliation as certain and American enforcement as negotiable. Under President Trump, that era is over, and those who fear the danger of defying Tehran ought not to discount the cost of testing Washington. The president has created the conditions to leverage every agency, every authority, and action many assumed we would never summon. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains the tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone. Basically, he's shutting down the access from the central bank, from the deep state players, the money. That's what he's shutting down. Iran will be isolated. The proxy will no longer have support, which means they're going to hold up the white flag. But when you look at this at the 40,000-foot view, it's not just about Iran. This is about taking control over the system, and that is the deep state central bank system. Joe Lange explains, way more happening here than just a conflict with Iran. Iran isn't the real target. Iran is just the narrative. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trump are announcing to the world that they completely control the world's financial system. And today, they're announcing something that was never happened before. The particular language is important. An economic D-Day is about to begin. D-Day is a historic reminder of the beginning of Freedom Day in World War II, the beginning of the end of Nazi Germany, end of World War. Bessent is announcing unprecedented sanctions against any country helping Iran. Up until Trump, sanctions have been a scam. The real target is the world's financial debt slavery system, not Iran. No more scam sanctions. No more announcement sanctions that allow for countries and favored individuals to bypass sanctions and take advantage of the closed banking system created by imposing sanctions. Remember Drop 3836? Think 1.8 billion Hussein White House, Ukraine. Which bank? Think USAID, Ukraine. Think worldwide aid, Ukraine. Think Uranium One sale of U.S. uranium to Russia, sold out U.S. to benefit Russia for personal financial gain, risk U.S. national security for personal financial gain. How was payment made to U.S. persons? Think Ukraine. Think Iran. Russia and Iran allies. Russia, Iran, and China allies. U.S. political corruption, China. U.S. political corruption, Ukraine. U.S. political corruption, Russia. U.S. political corruption, Iran. Common denominator, China, Russia, and Iran. Closed financial systems. Logical thinking. And think about that. Think about when the UK said, Ukraine is our protector. Which three countries have faced the most sanctions over the last several decades? Russia, China, and Iran. Here's what I believe is happening. Bessent is announcing to the world Freedom Day for the world has begun. The world's debt slavery system is now under attack. Bessent controls the world's reserve currency and the most powerful central bank in the world. Bessent has the ability to track the dollars, and that's exactly what he's doing. I think he's already tracked all the dollars flowing into Iran from countries, businesses, and individuals. D-Day is the marker. Whoever doesn't stop breaking sanctions today is now the target. This operation by Bessent and Trump is twofold. It will expose those breaking the sanctions illegally, and it will expose the entire financial system. How? Bessent is going to demonstrate to the world that the financial system is completely decentralized and controlled. It is the exact opposite of sovereignty. Bessent and Trump are now using the Rothschild centralized banking system against them, and they can't do anything to stop them. This is the beginning of the freedom for the people of Iran and the world. The cabal's proxy government in Iran is being removed, and so is the centralized banking system. Full centralized control is being exercised and used as a catalyst to focus the world on the importance of sovereignty. And don't miss the importance of the timing. Guess what is getting ready to be voted on in the Senate? The Clarity Act. The coming blockchain system based on sovereign currencies using stablecoins is incoming. I think Iran peace deal is also incoming, timed. Iran wasn't just the cabal's proxy for terrorism and war in the Middle East. Iran is also the proxy sanctions scam worldwide. Q-Drop 1454. EU sanctions Iran. Leaders of EU only care about protecting flow of money, not the safety and security of their own people worldwide. Iran deal orchestrated for the people for the sole purpose of lifting sanctions. Blockade to allow access to foreign businesses for individuals and company-wide enrichment. Scam. Nothing to do with nukes. Cover. Hussein pallets of cash. Hussein's secret authority to convert U.S. dollars. War coming. No mainstream media coverage. Got popcorn? Absolutely. And this is exactly what Trump is doing. He's freeing us from the system that they created. The system is the economic enslavement system. And he has to break it down worldwide. This is not Trump being a neocon. He's not a neocon. He's a peacemaker. He's shutting down the entire system that they set up and shutting down their flow of money. Ukraine was a protector. Iran was a protector. Venezuela was a protector. They were the proxies of the deep state, the central bankers. He's shutting it all down. And yes, the deep state players, they're going to try to fight back. The central bank, you think they want to give up the creation of currency? No, they don't. This is how they control nations. This is how they create their system. So they're going to fight back. I do believe they're going to fight back with riots. Like yesterday, we mentioned the ballroom is much more than you know. Because again, what is their plan? Their plan is to basically riot. I do believe their plan is to go and try to get into the White House in the end. And yes, Trump is going to be using the Insurrection Act. Think about what just happened. Libs of TikTok just put this out. TikToker calls to storm the White House with a bunch of people and kill Trump and staffers. Mike Lee says, Cash, this might be a good time for an arrest. So this individual went on to TikTok and he said, listen, I'm going to make it very, very clear. Get your gun and we storm the White House and we kill, and this is what he said, we kill everyone in the White House. We don't just, storm it. We get in there and we kill the Secret Service. We kill Trump. This is what we're going to do. This is what he was telling people on TikTok. Now, think about it. The deep state players let the crazies out there. They've been brainwashing these people for a very long time. Do they want something like this to be started? Remember, they want a group. If they can't get a group, they'll get Antifa to do it. But if someone starts it off, then others will join in. This is what they're hoping for. Just like when Antifa starts the riots off, they pick up a garbage can, they throw it into the window. Criminals see it and go, hey, look, we can burn these places down. We can start looting. This is what they want to happen here. They just want one crazy to make the move. Then they want others to join in. Because again, as they're approaching the White House with their guns and they're shooting and they get killed, what do you think the fake news is going to do? What do you think all the people on social media are going to do? They're going to try to say, hey, look, they're killing Americans. I mean, think about all you got to do is look at ICE. This is the same narrative that they use there. But it seems that this individual named Aiden Langevin, he's been arrested by the FBI earlier this morning, less than 24 hours after we made them aware of these threats to President Trump. This is coming from Libs of TikTok. He is off the streets and is not a threat to our president now. F around, find out. And yes, you're going to see many others do this. Now, like I said before, if they can't get the crazies to kick this off, they're going to kick it off with Antifa. This is why they have a paid group. This is why they keep them on the payroll, because when they need an event, they use those people that are paid. And yes, this is what Trump has been planning for, because he knows what the deep state players are planning to do. Now, think about this. Trump now and team, they're exposing the fraud countrywide. And the deep state players, what are they doing? They're trying to stop it. They don't want people to know that they've been laundering everyone's money and paying certain people. And this is why Gavin Newsom signed the legislation to protect the crimes that they're committing. Assembly Bill 2624, dubbed the Stop Nick Shirley Act, expands California's Safe at Home program to certain nonprofit employees who assist people navigating the U.S. immigration system. The law will take effect October 1st, 2027, after Newsom leaves office because of term limits. The measure imposes penalties on people who distribute information or images of covered immigration workers under circumstances the law defines as inciting violence or threats. Posting personal information or an image with a specific intent with another person imminently use it to commit a crime involving violence or a threat of violence, punishable by a fine of $10,000 per violation. So basically, they created a law to protect their crimes. They created sanctuary cities to protect the crimes of the illegals. They created the election laws to protect their crimes of cheating in the elections. They created the law out in California to protect the crime of money laundering. These laws are unconstitutional. The deep state, the criminal syndicate, is protecting all their illegal activities by pretending they're creating laws that actually protect their crimes. The only way these laws stand is if you have attorney generals and judges in place to support this. Moving forward, all of this will be undone because, again, you can't have a law protecting a crime. It doesn't make any sense. Actually, everything the deep state players do doesn't make sense. This is why they needed the money to install the judges. They needed the money to install the AGs. They needed the money to install the corrupt politicians. They needed the money to keep their operation operational. Without the money, they have nothing. And this is what Trump is destroying. And think about it. It seems that Ilhan Omar, who's getting paid millions of dollars, even though it was a glitch, we know that's fake. Well, it seems that ICE, and Trump put this out, is refusing to disclose records on Ilhan Omar fraud probe, cites ongoing enforcement proceedings. So John Solomon, he requested information, and ICE basically came back and said, listen, we can't give you this information that you requested. It's being withheld in full pursuant to Title 5 USC 552B, Section 7, Section A. Disclosure of any responsive records at the time could reasonably be expected to interfere with enforcement proceedings. So basically, this tells us that there's an investigation going on in Ilhan Omar. They're looking at her brother, who became her husband. They're looking at all of this, and the Freedom of Information Act request cannot be fulfilled because there's an investigation going on. So if you want to know if there's an investigation going on, basically when you file a Freedom of Information Act request, if you get back Title 5 USC 552B 7A, that tells you something else is happening. And that's exactly what we see right now, which is very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we see is that we know that the BBC edited a video and made it seem like Trump was telling everyone to riot in D.C. And again, they did this on purpose. And Trump decided to file a defamation lawsuit against the BBC. And it seems that the BBC is attempting to transform what they described as a narrow defamation case into a broader investigation of the events surrounding January 6th. So the lawsuit concerns a BBC documentary in which the BBC spliced together portions of the president's January 6th speech, delivered nearly 55 minutes apart, while omitting his statement that supporters should march peacefully and patriotically to the U.S. Capitol. The BBC, of course, apologized for the editing and said, listen, it was an unintentional error, and it really didn't meet our legal threshold for defamation. Because, again, this was just a glitch. No, you spliced it perfectly to create this entire narrative. I mean, come on. Are we really buying this now? So Trump's filing says the BBC chairman acknowledged that the editing created a mistaken impression. And according to Trump's attorney, the BBC sought 126 documents requests and approximately 150 requests for omission from Trump and issued subpoenas to 47 family members, former officials, political associates, and federal agencies. The court ruled August 6th that the lawsuit did not permit the BBC to relitigate and discover every aspect of January 6th or seek discovery from any and all individuals with knowledge of the events. The judge directed the parties to conduct a meaningful conference to resolve remaining discovery disputes. Trump's attorney argued the BBC filed its latest motion 8 days later without following the process. So yes, the BBC is trying to rehash the entire January 6th event. And basically, I think what they want to really do is they want to use what the January 6th committee put together. But again, a lot of that's destroyed. And this has to do with them editing their video in a certain way to make people think a certain way. Again, this is not by accident. You don't just edit something and say, oh, look, we left out this whole part and we actually made it say something completely different. It was done on purpose. And their entire mission to try to stop this suit, I think it's going to fail big, big time. And think about what Trump and team are doing right now. They're actually exposing the entire shadow network and showing everyone how much money has been laundered by the system. Shiloh Marks put this out and said the federal government has made $2.7 trillion in payments it never should have. Not a typo, trillion. The Government Accountability Office calls them improper payments, which are payments made in error, in the wrong amount, or with no documentation. So right now, it looks like every step of the way, Trump and team want people to know how much has been laundered. I think this number is going to go way, way up. Brian Cate says, okay, they started to roll out the evidence to give you an idea how much the shadow government was stealing and laundering under the guise of error and incompetence. The corrupt payment system that Elon Musk and the Doge boys exposed earlier last year was working exactly as it was designed and intended to run. And that's absolutely true. And remember, this is just a small piece of it. I'm going to say, in the end, the debt that we see today, this debt is not going to be owed back to the Federal Reserve. I'm going to say the majority of it. And the reason why I say this is, first of all, Amendment 14, Section 4. There's been a rebellion in this country for a very long time. Any rebellion that creates this debt, the people are not responsible for. Secondly, since we see all this money laundering, and we're already seeing 2.7 trillion, and the 2.7 trillion is just an error in the wrong amount or with no documentation, we know there's going to be a lot more than just 2.7 trillion, which means if this was all done via fraud, because there's a rebellion against this country, there's infiltration from within, it means that this debt does not belong to the people. And yes, read Amendment 14, Section 4. And there's been a rebellion going on in this country because the deep state players created a criminal syndicate to go up against the American people, to destroy the Constitution and the country. So yes, there's been a rebellion going on, and Trump has been fighting this rebellion. And we talk about all the time how these people in Congress sit in classified briefings and then go buy stocks the next morning like they already know what's going to happen, because they do. Ro Khanna has made 25,000 trades while serving in Congress, 42 trades a week. His net worth went from 800,000 to over 30 million, and Hakeem Jeffries just killed the bill that would have stopped all of it. But here's what they don't want you to know. Those trades are actually public. They have to file them, which means everyday Americans like you and me can see exactly what they're buying and when they're buying it. My friend Ross Givens has been tracking these insider trades for close to a decade. He spent 20 years on Wall Street, former VP at JP Morgan Chase. Some of the trades he's uncovered have returned over 1,000%, and he's putting on a completely free training session Wednesday, August 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where he's going to walk you through exactly how to find and follow these trades yourselves. The first time Ross showed me how this works, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. This information's that's sitting right there in plain sight, and most people have no idea it even exists. This is going to be a big one, and spots are limited. Click the link below, scan the QR code, or visit insidersx22.com and grab your spot before they're all gone. Remember, it's Wednesday, August 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go to insidersx22.com or just click the link in the description. And we are winning every step of the way. Now, the deep state players, they're going to try to convince everyone that Trump isn't winning, and they're going to try to convince you that the deep state, that he's have a chance to win the midterms. And how do they do that? They use fake polls. And we know how this works. They use fake polls to make you believe that, hey, look, the D's are going to win. Oh, you know what? Don't even vote for a Republican because the D's got it. This is what they use the polls for. Plus, they use it for their cheating system. Trump put this out and says, the radical left Democrats are going crazy with fake polls. They're putting them out at levels never seen before. They're called demoralization operations, where they try to demoralize Republicans so they don't go out and vote. But the actual polls are tremendous, and the spirit in our country has never been higher. We're winning against everyone, including Iran, whose country is an economic and military death spiral. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. Now, they did this during the election with Biden. They used the polls to make you believe that he had a chance, that he was pretty much neck and neck with President Trump. This way, then they used their cheating system to pull him ahead, and it looks like, oh yeah, this is the way it was supposed to be. They did it with Kamala Harris. She was getting no numbers whatsoever. The people were not on her side. The people were not voting for her, but they had to keep the polls up very, very high to make you believe that she was pretty close. And then they used their cheating system to keep her in line with Obama, Clinton, and the rest. And again, soon what you're going to see is you're going to see a very, very big difference between the poll numbers and the elections, because when you remove the cheating system, when you removed what they've been doing for a very long time, the polls won't even make sense. Actually, when you look at just the primaries with the Republicans, and let's say Byron Donalds and Blakeman, when you look at those poll numbers, they had them very, very close, but they weren't close at all. This is what you're going to see with the D Party. And what's very interesting is that the White House, and yes, we had IndyCar, the Indy 500 this weekend, Trump was waving the green flag. The White House says, when someone says trust in Trump, is that the green light? Starting to seem that way. Adam Schiff responded to this and said, While you struggle with the cost of gas, Trump offers you the spectacle of an IndyCar race, hoping you'll not notice. More taxpayer money spent on his self-aggrandizing distractions, and you get higher taxes and higher costs. Graham Rahal says, no, Adam. He wanted you to notice and bask in the pride of being American. Watch great racing and patriotism on display. Not only that, this was privately funded, not government, although it drove thousands of folks to the D.C. area that have never been. It allowed folks who have never been to see museums, monuments in the White House, and American history for the first time as well. And guess what? Hundreds of thousands of Americans, blue and red, as well as fans from all over the world, love the Freedom 250. Absolutely. And I know Adam Schiff is saying, oh, the gas prices are high. Watch how quickly the gas prices come down. They're already starting to come down, and they're going to come down dramatically. Why? Because this is not a war with Iran. This is the dismantling of the oil control. Trump is going to decentralize the oil, and the prices of oil is going to drop. So, again, Trump is bringing beef prices down. He's bringing medical costs down, drug prices down, gas prices are going to come down. Their entire affordability argument is going to go down the drain. And Trump is letting everyone know that MAGA is strong. His endorsements are stronger than ever. He says, my endorsements are stronger than ever, not to mention the fact that good people are getting elected that never had the chance. Here is an accurate list of the last number of seasons. There has never been anything close. It is an honor that I take very seriously. The few that lost were done out of loyalty. It was almost impossible for them to win, but I felt obligated to go with them because they were, in my opinion, good people, President DJT. And when you start to look at this, you could see that his wins, they're doing better than ever. Absolutely incredible. And he's at like a 97% rate right now, which is absolutely incredible. When you break it down and you look at the Senate, 100%. U.S. House, 98%. Governor, 80%. Fantastic. Now, think about it. Trump is waving the green flag. Is that the green light? Maybe, but this is very, very interesting. When you look at post 2298, and remember, Twitter is no longer Twitter, it is now X. So yes, things change as time goes on. But again, can they shut down platforms? Yes, they can. So just think about this for a second. Twitter has been given the green light to blanket censor all content deemed to threaten their survival. Election. So let's see. Twitter is not controlled anymore. Elon controls X now. Can they do something to try to shut down X? Maybe, maybe not. Then it says Google, Facebook will follow. Expect Com's blackout attempt, POTUS Twitter. Will they try to shut down X? Well, that won't affect POTUS anymore because Trump is on truth. Rogue employee excuse. Welcome to the police state. They know if they lose, it's over. The time to fight is now. Good versus evil. Humanity's at stake. Drop the memes. Silent majority no more. Be loud. You have a choice. Are you registered? Vote them all out. Prepare. Red October. We stand together. So they know once they lose the midterms, they're done because Trump has the executive branch. When we win the House, when we win the Senate, he has the lawmakers on his side. He has the ability to remove those judges. He has the ability to have everyone confirmed at lightning speed. He has the ability to pass the laws that need to be passed. He has the ability to introduce new amendments to the Constitution. That is the power. And yes, the deep state players, they will try to stop this at every stage of the game. And since the Post said Red October, Trump also put this out from MAGA Voice, says the whole map would be bright red if the Senate passed voter ID laws. So I do believe that, yes, red wave is coming, Red October is coming. Absolutely, because there's no other alternative. If we're going to take back control of the country, there is no alternative but to win both the House and the Senate, period. The end, that's it. Because again, if we're going to remove the system that they put into place, we need the lawmakers. Then Trump put this out. We fought, and it's a picture of George Washington, 1776. We fought a revolution and worked to give you people freedom. Don't sit back and give it away to terrorists posing as a political party, letting us know we're fighting a tyrannical government. And we have to remember, our founding fathers, they fought a revolutionary war against a tyrannical government. And remember, it was a government that governed them. The people that were put into place, that installed themselves, they pretended that they were just like us. Oh, we want the same things. In reality, they never did. They were against we the people every step of the way. This is why our founding fathers put together the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution doesn't give us our rights. The Constitution tells the government, no touch. Awaken Outlaw put this out and says, the Constitution does not give you rights. You already have them. The Constitution tells the government that it cannot take those rights away. I wish more people would understand this. Awaken Outlaw says, this is why the left loathes the Constitution, because it serves as a set of negative rights stipulating what the government can't do to us. Our founding document restricts government power by recognizing our pre-existing God-given rights, making clear that the government can't say, shouldn't trespass against them. And this is what they've been doing. They've been breaking the contract. And this is why they've been introducing the gun control laws. This is why they've been trying to censor people. This is why they've been trying to take and chip away at your rights and trying to convince you that it's possible to do it, but it is not. And this is why our founding fathers created the Constitution, to protect the rights, to make sure the government can't do that. Remember, they fought a war. They know exactly what a tyrannical government can do. They experienced it. This is why they came up with this document. And this is why the people are born with the rights. They're not privileges. You're born with the right to speak freely. You're born with the right to own a weapon. You're born with the right where government just can't come in and go through your stuff. They made sure of this because they knew exactly what they were fighting. And this is why they created the document. And Trump is bringing us back to that document. Remember, the deep state, the central bankers, they've been trying to remove all of this. That's the infiltration. But actually, it is all falling apart. And you could see that we, the people, Trump, we're winning every step of the way. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.